Okay, we are now going to show you the most worthless door in the world. Why business administration building at BGSU? We think maybe it's a dimensional portal, so we're really in another dimension now. Yes. Okay. Hello. You may notice that I'm not in my usual spot. Today I'm going to be reviewing Looking for Alaska by John Green, but I decided that this book contains too much awesome to be reviewed by only one person. And so I have here with me Anne Galaraloth, who is another person you should subscribe to, and my sister, who is blending in with the chair so you probably can't see her, Cassie, Realmer06, who you should not subscribe to because she doesn't actually make videos. Disclaimer, if you have not read Looking for Alaska, do not watch this video any further, because we are not even going to try to avoid spoilers, because you can't when discussing this book. So, stop watching this video, go read Looking for Alaska, and then come back and watch this video and enjoy.
I don't have any notes.
I don't either, I'm just gonna wing it.
Okay, I'm good at that. So, I'm talking about how awesome the theme of Looking for Alaska is, because well, one of the themes. There's more than one. And it's a common theme for John Green. He actually continues looking at it in Paper Towns, actually in more depth. Everyone has their own picture of how they see everybody else, how the world is, and everybody's picture is different, and you can never know the whole picture. And to me, it really speaks to me because it's kind of like any art form. Like, say you're making a painting of, I don't know, a landscape or a portrait of a person. You only set down that one aspect on the paper, and you may get it as close to correct as possible, although usually there's all kinds of tiny flaws. The flaws and everything are all just one picture, and you automatically leave out certain parts. So the book follows Pudge, and it sort of chronicles his picture of this girl named Alaska. And his picture is very different, and you especially see this after, spoiler alert, after she dies, when he's trying to come to terms with what happened. He tries to make what happened fit into the picture he already had, and it doesn't. And so he goes through all these different things to revise the picture to make what happened fit. And so I think that's really cool.
Okay. And now it is Cassie's turn.
It is Cassie's turn. And Cassie is... Okay. I'm going to talk about one of the big metaphors of the story, which is the labyrinth. There are two quotes that factor very heavily into this story. There is the quote from Rabelais, "I go to seek a great perhaps," and the second quote, which is from Bolivar, "How will I get out of this labyrinth of suffering?" It took me a minute to remember it. It's like labyrinth. Yeah. And this is a question that the character of Alaska is greatly concerned with throughout the entire story, and she keeps coming back to it. How do we get out of this labyrinth of suffering? And one of the quotes from the book that I felt summed up the whole tone of the book very nicely. Pudge and Alaska, it's, I think, their first conversation, and she says, "How do we get out of the labyrinth?" And he echoes that question, and Alaska basically says to him, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. You figure out how to get out of the labyrinth, and I'll get you laid." That kind of sums up the overall tone of the story, and this mixture of this very deep philosophy with this kind of crude, this is how teenagers think and relate to one another. This idea of the labyrinth keeps coming back and coming back and coming back, especially in the after part after Alaska has died, and Pudge is trying to fit Alaska's death into what he has come to understand about this labyrinth, and he can't do it, and he really struggles with it, and Alaska's answer is straight and fast. And in the end, Pudge says, maybe straight and fast is the only way out of the labyrinth, but as for me, I choose the labyrinth. I choose to stumble and struggle my way through, because that's life, and that's what we do. It's never going to be clear-cut, and it's never going to be straight. It's something that we have to mess our way around in. I really like John Green. In one of his Question Tuesday videos, he got asked, "Are you stuck in the labyrinth of suffering?" And his answer was, "I'm in the labyrinth, but I'm not stuck." And I think that's a really good way to look at it, and it's really kind of the overall message of this book. We live, and so we're in the labyrinth, but we don't have to be stuck in it. We don't have to let it defeat us. We can work our way out in the end. So yeah.
Okay.
Huzzah.
All right, now I'm going to ask Cassie to hold the camera. And I am going to talk about the structure of the novel, because I'm a nut for structure. Structure of the novel, by John Green's own admission, is this. Now this is pretty obvious. This section here is the before section leading up to the point in the middle of the X, which kind of the whole story revolves around, and then of course comes the after section. So it's an unusual way to structure a novel, because usually you try to build up to one point towards the end. And in this case, the whole novel revolves around this point in pretty much the exact center. Hang on there, me, from a few hours ago. You were so enthralled by the reviews of Anne and Cassie that you forgot to mention a few things. You see, this, like the use of the present tense, gives that moment a sort of eternity. All of the titles in the novel are in reference to that event. And so it is a constant presence, even though we never see it happen, and even though for the first half of the novel at least, we don't even know what it is. That's all. You're doing fine other than that, me, from a few hours ago. Back to you. The interesting thing about this structure is that you would think, given the event that it's circulating around, the death of Alaska, you would think that it would essentially be two different novels. But it's not like that at all. In fact, the two parts of the novel are pretty much alike. And even, you know, following the metaphor even further, they look the same. The two ends, this end and this end, I need a third hand. The two ends, thank you, the two ends of the X look the same. They are shaped the same. They are congruent shapes, but they are opposite of each other. And so it's not a different story, but it's the same story with a different perspective. You read through it and you see the characters are the same, their personality quirks are still there, there's a prank on both sides, there's even exploration of death on both sides. In the before section, Miles is fascinated by last words, and he's forced to look at this obsession that he's had pretty much all of his life in kind of a new light, now that he himself has experienced a death. And the thing about Alaska's death is that what you find in the before section with Pudge is that he likes deaths that are predictable. He likes deaths that have last words, that have an ending. Whereas in the after section, he realizes that with Alaska's death, there is no predictability, because he doesn't know her last words, and that's something that really, really gets to him, is that he will never know what her last words actually were. I think more than anything, he can't get next to the fact that there's just so much that he doesn't know. And so that's one of the things that I really like about the novel, and both of the things that you two brought up are really great aspects of the novel, and things that make it one of my favorites, still one of my favorites. In fact, it's probably on my top 10 list, if I had a top 10 list, which I don't. Maybe I should make one. If I did, Looking for Alaska would definitely be on my top 10 list. And of course, if you're watching at this point, then you've already read the novel, because I very sternly told you not to watch this if you haven't. But read it again, because every time you read this novel, you will like it more. And with that, as I already said, my next book is Number of the Stars by Lois Lowry. I'm already about halfway through, so that review will be up soon. And I'll see you next time. Say bye.
Bye. Bye.